Hello friends, in this video we are going to discuss Indian economy in the pre-British period, the structure and organization of villages and towns, industries and handicrafts. So in this video we shall discuss India's economic position vis-a-vis the world from the world economy from 1 AD to 2001 AD, and then the structure and organization of the villages and towns, and then industries, handicrafts in the pre-British India. Why I am discussing this India's economic position from 180 to 2001 AD is because that the students or the viewers will get to know the India's economic position in the world before the British came, before the Mughal came, and some people say that no, India was Sone ki Chidiya, and there was a glorified past, and many people also say that India's past, particularly during the uh, Maurya dynasty, was the golden time period for India. So we should know the fact, and then why people invaded India. So that will give us some idea actually if you compare the India's economic position from 180 to 2001 AD. AD. So now let us look at these numbers. Of course, there is a very big table, but you do not have to remember all the numbers that is shown in the table. Just I have shown these numbers. Remember actually that Madison has basically compiled all this data, and I have taken this table, so I will give the reference in the coming slide. So remember, by 1 AD, the world output was only 102 billion. Here you can say 102.6 billion, and then at that time, India's output was, India's total GDP was about 33 billion dollars. Yeah, and so the world GDP in 1 AD was about 102 billion, and out of that, India's GDP alone was about 33.75 billion, which and of course you should remember that when I say India here, in 1 AD, India means it included India, the present Pakistan, and then Bangladesh. So that was India, and that's why we had almost no more than 33% of world GDP. So then the world GDP grows, and then it reaches $1 trillion by 1870. So from 102 billion, it took almost 1870 years to reach the $1 trillion world GDP, and then gradually the world GDP increases from 100 okay, from 1 trillion to 2.73 trillion in 1913, and close to or little more than $5 trillion in 1950, and then it becomes $16 trillion in 1973, and then it becomes $37 trillion in 2001. And remember, India's okay, the present world GDP is about 90 trillion US dollar. So that's how the world GDP has increased over time, and India's share has changed over this time period. Now, this chart basically gives the major economy share of global GDP from 0 AD to 2005 AD, and this is given by the Angus Madison, and so you can see this reference. That is OECD Development Center. And so what you see is that in the beginning of this uh, this AD, in the beginning of say 0 AD or 1 AD, the output share of India was more than 33 percentage. India's output in the world GDP had more than 33 percentage, and that continuously declined. Of course, if you see the graph, then the decline was at a slower rate till you can say 1700 AD, and then after 1700 AD, the output fall was drastic till 1973, and then after 1973, we see there is a little rising trend, and so what we see is that India's GDP in the world GDP, or India's share in the world GDP, fell from 33 percentage before the Mughal came, before the British came, and in fact, before the Mughal came, India's share in the world GDP was 33 percentage, and by the time the Mughal came to India, India's share in the world GDP had fallen to less than 25 percentage, and then during the British time period, then it fell significantly. By if you see by 1950, the share had gone below 5%. India's share in the world GDP had fallen below 5%, and then it took some time, and of course the trend continued for some time. But then after 1973 onwards, we see that this trend has been reversed a little bit, but it is not sufficient. Now, if you see United States share, it was very low, and then it has gone up. So our focus here is not on the other countries, but of course, it's a relative perspective. Now we see that India was at the top, followed by China, and then Western Europe. But the trend has completely changed. Now, United States actually has the highest share in the world GDP, followed by the Western Europe, then China, then Japan, and then India. So this is the trend for India's GDP. Before the Mughal came, and so we can say when the Hindus were there are Hindu rulers in India. Then when the Mughals came, there was a drastic fall, and then when the British ruled this country, there was a significant fall in the India's GDP, India's share in the world GDP. So that will give us idea to interpret other things. Now, coming to the structure and organization of the villages and towns, I basically went through Arthashastra because if you of course there are many other books that you can go through to understand the economic history of India, and the major references are basically Tirthankar Roy, and then you can also go through the most important reference, that is Cambridge Economic History of India. I know that is a masterpiece. Everyone should read this, but then they do not cover the entire time period, and so I thought that we should see actually what is written in the Arthashastra, and that Arthashastra basically covers the time period. It is assumed that it starts from 4 BC to 400 BC to about 1 BC, 100 BC, and so that is the time period. And then that talks about the Arthashastra will talk about the economic condition in India before basically anybody came to India, and then when India was probably the India was experiencing the golden era, basically during the Mauryan Chandragupta Maurya's dynasty, and then the Mauryan dynasty. So we should know that actually when India had the golden regime in a historic sense. So now coming to the village concept, if you see what are the status of the village in Arthashastra, it is written basically Kautilya writes how to create a village, and how the king can create a new village. So a new village can be created by inducing the foreigners to immigrate, That means foreigners should come into our country or the kingdom. Then it was kingdom. Or what the king can do is, if the king believes that no one village has become overpopulated, then the king can ask some of the people to go to a new village, and so that a new village is created, and that can be created on a new site or on the old ruins. That's how a new village can be created or can be constructed. And what should be the size of the village? The village basically consisting each of not less than 100 families, and of not more than 500 families of agriculture people of Sudra caste. Of course, it is mentioned in the Arthashastra. So that, because that time caste was very much prevalent in this Indian subcontinent. So basically, no, we can without looking at the caste thing, we can simply look at the fact that either 100 families or not more than 500 families of agriculture people. So that would be the size of the village, and then how the boundary of the village is defined. No, it would be extending as far as a crosser. That means 2,250 yards, or you can say, and it should be capable of protecting each other. No, and then so the villagers should be able to should be capable enough to protect their land, so that if it becomes too big, then they will not be able to protect their land. And then the boundaries shall be denoted by a river, then mountains, and then forest, and then bulbous plants, caves, artificial buildings, okay, or by trees such as salmali or sami, basically the silk cotton tree, or acacia, suma, or milky trees. So basically, we can say that the village boundary is to be defined by the forest, mountain, rivers, and then artificial buildings and trees. Then now coming into the village economy, we can see that the division of labor was very simple, and it was basically based on the family occupation, or you can say it was based on the caste system or the Varna system, you can say. So basically, we had the practice of the caste system, and then the Brahmins focused on the education or dissemination of knowledge. Kshatriyas focused on the protection of the country, fighting the war, or protecting the kingdom, and then Vaishyas were involved in the trading, and then Sudras were involved in the agriculture. That's what I mentioned in the previous slide. So there is simple division of labor, and then the skills used to be inherited from the family, because of course the students used to get education from Gurukulas, but then Gurukulas were not open to all the people. They were restricted to only the upper caste people. So the lower caste, the so-called lower caste, although I do not agree with the concept lower and upper caste, but then the lower caste people were not allowed to study in the Gurukulas, and so the skills basically were transferred through the family institution, and then that's how we had the weavers, we had goldsmiths, we had carpenters, we had potters, we had oil pressers, we had washermen, we have washermen, and then we have cobblers, we have barbers, we had Ayurvedic doctors. So that's how the different occupations were there, and then all these skills used to be transferred through family institution. And most of the village economies are self-sufficient, and we should also know that the social network was very much thick, so people were dependent upon each other in different ways. And so there was a panchayat system, and then the senior or elder people used to basically dispute to settle down the disputes. So at village level, there used to be a dispute settlement mechanism. If something cannot be resolved in the panchayat, then that goes village. Then that goes to the panchayat. So there was a lot of people who are doing this astrology, and then astronomy was also there. Then teaching of mathematics, and you should know that in India we had hundreds of calendars. In fact, that number would go to thousands of calendars. But Amartya Sen, in his book Argumentative Indian, he talks about the number of calendars that India had, and the contribution of Aryabhata, Brahmir, okay, and we have heard about Lilavati Sutra. So all those mathematical, prosperity, mathematical development had happened, in the past. In fact, this, go back to the BC, okay, and also early AD. So no, people basically had focused on different things, and that's how India had basically flourished, and people had specialized on many things. Because see, if in fact, if you look at the education system, then we had Takshashila, we had Nalanda. Okay, so many people came from other countries to study in India. Okay, these are the center for excellence. So okay, so that's how the division of labor, and people also focused on education. It's not that simply we had family based education. No, people also focused on many other things. Now coming to the towns. Okay, here did I mention yeah, in the villages I did not mention the farmers. So there are a lot of farmers also, and there were laborers, and there were the Brahmins, and then there were a lot of artisans. So no, that's how that was the village economy, and it was self-sufficient, and quite prosperity also was there. Now coming to the towns, so towns, could be of different types. It could be the capital city of the kingdom, or it could be a mining town, or it could be a business town, or it could be a port town, or it could be a religious center. So towns are of different types. It's not that there are no towns. In fact, Harappan civilization, we know that there is proper town planning. So India actually had, from the very beginning, we had different towns, and so these are the basically categories that we had, either the capital of the kingdom, or the mining towns, or the business, because business towns, and then port towns, and of course sometimes all these things can come together. Okay? And that means it is capital town, and it's mining and happening, and then the business is again happening, and then it's a port town, and it could be religious center. So uh, towns were also basically defined like this, and you can see different names. These are only a few names that I have given, but you can take any other name from different other states. Now, coming to the trade and towns, what all activities are happening. So there are trade happening inter-village, and then inter-kingdom, and then there is export and import. There is a barter system, and there are different economic classes like farmers, then laborers, artisans, and village officials, and moneylenders. So like that, we had no different economic class. These are of course both in the villages and in the towns, because here I have mentioned the village officials. So the village officials, they would be coming from the villages, and then they will be working in the towns. So similarly, the laborers, they could be coming to the towns to do work. Farmers, of course, were living in the villages, and there are money lenders both in urban areas and also in the rural areas. Barter system prevailed both in rural areas and urban areas. Of course, there are prevalence of currency in different forms in different kingdoms. There are different currencies, like we have heard about Kauri, and then we have heard about different minting places. Basically, currency used to be minted in different kingdoms. So both currency was there. That means the trade took place with currency in gold, in barter system. And the villages were, of course, dependent on each other. It's not that all villages were self-sufficient, because the trade used to take place between villages, between kingdoms, between countries. So trade was there very much, and you know that India had a glorious past in marine trade, and then India used to export a lot of commodities to the Southeast Asian countries. We'll discuss that in details. Now, again, within the towns and trade, we discuss. Again, in Arthashastra, there is a lot of discussion about the armory. So the basically, the arms used to be produced, and then within the kingdom, and then there is also knowledge and the measurement of space and time, and then there was a provision to appoint basically the inspectors for the weights and measurements in during Maurya Empire. That is what is mentioned in Arthashastra. So there was superintendent of tolls, and so they used to collect tolls because when you are why this is described, because when the trade is taking place and the commodities are moving from one kingdom to the other kingdom or from one town to the other, there used to be a large gate, and then there was a toll house, and that toll used to be collected by the superintendent of toll. There was a liquor production also. People used to produce liquor, and that used to be sold. And Arthashastra also this is described. There was slaughterhouse. Then prostitute was, of course, prevalent, and they used to get salary. And then there used to be superintendent of the ships, because export and import happened through ship. So there was superintendent of the ships, and then similarly, there was a collector used to appointed collector general to basically oversee the collection of the revenue from the land, because land revenue used to be the major contributor to the exchequer of the kingdom. And then there was officer in charge of the capital city, no, or the Nagaraka, who will look into the affairs of the capital town. So, for just like our the present as municipal corporation, or the and then the mayor, or say you can say the uh, yeah, a commissioner of the municipality. Just like that, in Arthashastra, this is described that for every capital, one officer will be in charge. And then there are, talking about the industries and handicrafts, there was very much knowledge of science. There was knowledge of science dealing with copper and other minerals. And in fact, we know that the iron pillar in Delhi, basically talks about India's knowledge in metallurgy. And in fact, India used to export iron to other countries. That's what is described in history. And so Indians knew the mining technology, and then Indians knew the metallurgy technology. In fact, you can also say that Indians knew basically engineering, because if you see the big temples in this country, be it Konark Temple, be it Lingaraj Temple, many temples in south, in the north. So without proper knowledge of the engineering, you cannot make such big temples. So of course that knowledge used to be transferred through family institution. But then we can look at uh, historical monuments available with us, and interpret. Okay. And then there was knowledge of basically chemical science, which you can say that the art of distillation and condensation of mercury, and art of testing gems. These are actually also described in Arthashastra. Okay. And then again, uh, basically we had basically experts in mineralogy, and then we had weavers, and we used to weave different saris, cotton saris. In fact, the muslin of Dhaka and Kalikas of Bengal were famous. And then it is also believed that the mummies in Egypt basically were covered with the Muslim Dhaka. And similarly, India had Kashmir shawls, dhotis, and different varieties of textile industry. And this used to be exported also. Of course, in fact, you had iron, and we had jewelry, we had spices, okay, and we had even ocean mines where we collected conch shells and diamonds, precious stones, pearls, and corals, and salt. So, no industry and handicraft industry was also flourishing in this country. And if you talk about the export and import, because some know why I'm emphasizing on this, because some people may think that India was a closed economy, and since I told you in the beginning that most of the villages are self-sufficient, people may think that there are no trade with other countries, but that is wrong. We had actually good amount of trade, and I told you that we had good trade relationship, basically marine trade relationship with many Southeast Asian countries. So along with trade, our religion also, Buddhism had basically spread to the Asian country, all Asian continent. So what all commodities were exported from India? You see spices, we had pepper, we had cloves, we had cinnamon, and then wood, sugar, dyestuffs, and then precious stones, rice, other cereals, coconuts, and then finished textile goods, both fine and coarse quality, and then some ports in. So, yeah, so we exported a lot of products actually to different countries, both primary as well as some value-added products, and you can see some ports, names in the history, and then of course these are only a few names, and then Calicut, and then Cochin, Quillan in Kerala. So, but there are no many. You can talk about many other ports, starting in Odisha, so all the coastal states actually had actually a lot of ports. And then coming to the imports, India imported perfumes, and then basically from Persian countries, and then we had finished clothes, we had wax, we had coral and gold, precious stones. In fact, horses were also imported from other countries, it is believed so. And then medicinal herbs, then finished ceramic and metalwares, linen and silk from China, and salt was also salt used to be imported. So our export and import destination. So we have imported from uh, China, or our Southeast Asian countries, Africa, and similarly we have imported from African countries. We have exported to African countries. We have exported to South Asian countries, and then Southeast Asian countries, and then have exported to China. So that's how we had a very good trade relationship with other countries. So no, we can say that before the British came to India, uh, the India's share in the world GDP was more than 33%, and that reflects that India's economy was in prosperity, and we can say that that Sone ki chidiya, though that could be probably true, and so that we can give all the credit to the rulers, and probably um, the prosperity of India probably could have attracted the scholars and as well as the invaders. Okay? And so that's how we see the Mughals attacked India, and they ruled for some time. And then the British came basically with the East Indian Company, and then they ruled here, and then that's how freedom fight movement happens, and then India gets independence in 1947. So this is given in medicine. Just to summarize, what was the contribution of different economies to the India's GDP. We can say that we can classify everything into three economy. One is non-village economy, village economy, and tribal economy. So basically, no, that means rural economy and urban economy, and then tribal economy. So the rural economy or the village economy contributed basically 72% of the labor force. And if you look at the contribution to national income, then the village economy contributed 45% to the national income. And on the other hand, the urban economy contributed 18% of the labor force, and they contributed, the urban economy contributed 52% to the national income of India. So that means in the urban areas, basically, who were contributing. Basically, these are the Mughal emperor and court. So this is basically during the Mughal Empire, social structure of the Mughal Empire. Uh, and so Mughal emperor court, and then Mansabdars, and then Jagidars, native princes, and then appointed and hereditary zamindars. They contributed about 15% to the national income. Then merchant and bankers, traditional professions, petty traders and entrepreneurs, then soldiers, petty bureaucracy, urban artisans, construction workers, servants, sweepers, scavengers in urban areas. They contributed 37% to the national income, and they constituted 70% of the labor force. On the other hand, village economy included the dominant caste structure, cultivators and rural artisans, and then landless laborers, and then servants, sweepers, and scavengers. They constituted 72% of the population, and they contributed about 45% to the national income. On the other hand, tribal population constituted 10% of the labor force, and they contributed 3% to the national income. during the Mughal Empire. This is a study by the Madison. So, of course, like the present situation, the urban economy contributed more than 50% to the national income, and the population, of course, was less in urban area. And in village economy or rural economy contributed 45% to the national income, and but the labor force was 72 percentage in the village economy, and then tribal economy contributed 3 percentage, and then population, their share in the total labor force was about 10 percentage. So this gives a summary picture of the contribution of the rural economy and urban economy to the national income of India, that was undivided India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. So you can see the references, Kautilya's Arthashastra translated into English by our Sama Shastri, and then we have Cambridge Economic History of India, and then Indian Economy book by Dattan Sundaram, and then we should also look at the Madison's book, basically on basically for getting the historical data on world GDP that is available in the public domain. Now, with this we conclude. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you might have liked this video. If you like the video, please press the like button, and do subscribe my channel, and share this video with other friends, so that they will get notification for my videos in the coming days. Thank you for watching this.